Wonderful. So let's start with the first question. So which technologies, to all of you, are already improving people's life today? Would you like to start?
Yes, pleasure. Allow me 1 minute before I answer the question.
Sure.
In the tradition that we skip questions. I, as a space policy man, if you like, I can only, and I would like to resonate what has been said just before. What we have been presented with by the ministers is really a game changer in many ways. It will affect what we will discuss here, and it will really affect the domain of security and defense. And it is at a scale that is really going to make a significant change. This is not just linear. I think we should also hold in a moment to appreciate this moment. Yes. And this is not business as usual. This is not just an extrapolation of existing. I stop here.
No, I like that you're saying this. It's, yes. It's very intense today, and I think it's good that we meet here and that we, meet with politics and industry. So
yes, and we have a tendency, maybe as space people and people that like to do stuff and get stuff done, to go to the next thing. Yes. I think this is a moment to hold in and really appreciate a true shift, and this not so long ago we would not have imagined. It has been said by many, and I just want to resonate this. Now, to answer to your specific question, in a previous live, in fact, and it was mentioned this morning, and it was Meteor second generation, which was given as an example of meteorological missions, weather forecasting that affect our daily lives. Yeah. And I think this is still, and maybe in the narrative and the positive narrative, which we should much more develop towards the public also, completely underutilized. There was a discussion on what is the factor by which investment in space produces a benefit to the wider economy and society. There were different numbers, up to 4, 3, 4, some said 4 to 7. You can actually study and get evidence that in meteorological missions, the factor is up to 20. And that is the biggest of all returns on investment in anything you can do in space. Simply, it has become such a commodity. We're used to the weather forecast on TV. It may be right or wrong still, but we improve it. Also, the repetitiveness or the timeliness of information is in changing. The resolution of the systems are changing with every generation we put up. But for me, this is still the prime example. It is completely underused in the communications, and I'm happy it was used this morning. It's a rare occasion.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Mr. Rönecke, maybe you can continue. You're the expert for wildfires, right? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Thank you for your question. I was thinking of how you can actually show the power of new space and also the power of space to solve problems on Earth. And there's a few numbers we're required because we have impact investors to calculate how much CO2 emissions our activity with approximately 500 customers across the globe that have forests and monitor wild landscape of the size of Australia. What kind of benefit that is to CO2 emissions every year. And the outcome is this is approximately 50 million tons in CO2. We are a company of 200 people. We have a constellation of 10 satellites in orbit. And for those who don't have the figures ready, check on Gemini. This is the same amount the entire German steel industry emits every year. So this is how you can make changes and benefits to this Earth, also considering that from the entire emissions of CO2 per year, wildfires make up approximately 25%.
But maybe one question, how do you really integrate such data into real-time emergency systems?
So one of the applications we are currently commissioning is an integration of the data that we are combining from approximately 25 satellite sources during the day into a clear picture of the situation, where fires are, where they will go, and also which fires are threatening and which fires you can let go. Most of our customers don't have the problem that they don't know where exactly the fire is. They have the problem of understanding what decisions they need to take. And this is the other element that I am missing today in the conversation a little bit, is we're discussing hardware, we're discussing data, but we're never discussing insights. Because what we really need and what we really need to do in order to take decisions is we need to have the understanding of which decision to take. And in this particular case, firefighters, foresters are very similar to other military forces that need to understand the best situational awareness is what makes the difference.
Claire, Welby, is it right, or Welby? Welby, right. Okay, so Claire Welby, are you already convinced would you invest in what both of them said?
Yes, and in fact we are investors in space, but maybe to just step back a little bit on that, because for us the space journey started relatively recently, about 5 years ago, because KKR, for those who don't know, that's a global multi-strategy, multi-asset manager with about 690 billion of assets that we manage across infrastructure, credit, private equity, not venture capital. So we had to wait for the industry, especially in Europe, to mature for it to become relevant to us. But when we then decided to pursue space, why was that? It was mainly for the factor of resiliency. I think we had to go through a little bit of an internal learning process that space is not only a hobby for billionaires, it's not only Katy Perry and spacesuits, it is the reality of it, which is the backbones of how we solve today's problems. And that's where, when we started our journey to invest in space, it was really honored to find the Fuchs family, who Marco was just on stage a bit earlier, was OHB. When we think about OHB, what attracted us to what they have done is the remarkable position they have by building satellites to solve climate change, to solve how we communicate in a secure way, how we have intelligence in geopolitical tensions. So I think that's what attracted us to the sector in the first place.
You wanted to add something to Lady Gaga, or no?
I just wanted to make an addition, because the kind of insights that you get from space data are unique and make the conclusion that you take totally different from when you just look at the Earth.
And once again, Claire Welby, you also know that with your investments you can steer the market, right? What do you focus on invest in?
I think what I found interesting, just listening to the different speeches today and the keynotes, was the importance that the broader ecosystem now brings onto space. I think the space was always relevant. I don't think we woke up to it, but now the need for acceleration, having to keep up or even frog leap certain technologies in the benefit of European sovereignty is important. And I think the message that I heard and that we're here to answer is it will cost money. It will require capital. Governments have noticed that. I think to the point earlier, the speech by Mr. Pertios was very strong in that regard. But they won't be able to do it alone. And they will need private capital to help on that journey. And I think the message is clearly private capital is available. When we look at the amount of dry powder, so the amount of capital our investors give us and our competitors, it's at record high levels. But capital will only flow here when the rules of the game are clear, when the framework is clear, when there's visible, predictable pipelines we can underwrite, and when there is faster approaches and faster approvals. So I think it's almost the reverse. Private capital is there. We want to support. We're supporting already, and we want to do more, but we need everyone to work together.
And I think also one part of the game is that we ensure sovereign access to technologies here, so those new space companies remain a European company. Mr. Sion, how do you think, can we ensure that here in Europe?
Yeah, before answering the question, I think there are a lot of other usage of space that we did not mention, because we could have speak about health in remote areas. We could have spoken about how we reduce fertilizers to improve farming. There are a huge number of use cases. And being at the head of a company which makes military rockets and civilian rockets, usually I speak more about the usage described very brilliantly by Bundesminister Pistorius, but the civilian usage are incredible. And when you are doing launches, what makes life very nice is that each launch is a different story. And I joined Ariane Group 2.5 years ago. And if we look at the Ariane launch we did, the first one, we launched a space probe to the icy moons of Jupiter to see if there is life there. It's for the benefit of humanity for exploration.
Wow.
Then we have launched 2 secured communication satellites, one for Germany, one for France. Then a military satellite for Earth observation for CSO3. We just launched METOP, the satellite which was mentioned before, and to give an additional figure to what we said, EUMETSAT estimated that over the life of the satellite, it's 64 billion euros which could be saved through improved weather forecast. And they didn't give a number, but they said it's thousands of lives which would be saved through the better weather forecast. In the months to come, we'll launch Sentinel, which is to better understand climate change. More than 80% of the data which are used to understand climate change come from space. And then it will be Galileo. And Galileo is what allows banks to secure communications to make sure that the orders are in the right order, because you can see what would be the difficulty if there was not the right timing. So the benefit of space is incredible, and the fact that Europe can launch with its own autonomy this kind of missions, I think is something which is ensured by European cooperation. It's thousands of people working for Ariane, a big part of it in Germany. I mean, the 2 main contributors are France and Germany. And I think that these thousands of people can be proud of what has been achieved to guarantee this autonomy.
And we all know that data is not the new goal, it's our water for everything. How can we ensure that it remains open and usable for society, business and government? Mr. Möller.
I think this is a big question, it's a core question. You mentioned companies, you want companies to remain in Europe. You would like to keep the intellectual property. You want to give companies that are agile and bring dynamic to the sector to grow in a European market and maybe not disappear in another market or being put abroad on another continent. I think there are many elements that are under debate. I think they will be much more put into evidence now, where sovereignty and ambitions of autonomy are high on the agenda. But I'd also like to resonate what you said, that there's a lot on security where this is needed, why you want this to stay here. It's not just the defense side of things. If you look into critical infrastructures, you look into hyper threats, you look into what happens on Berlin airports and the likes, this is going to increase, and it will affect transport network, energy networks, it will anything that is systematic, and you'll need observation data for this, you'll need communication. The wind farms were mentioned by the minister. I find this remarkable. This is a few years back now, and it is true, when Viasat was taken out, it was not just the troops of the military, it affected renewable energies in Germany, thousands of windmills. So that is a typical example, but to answer the core of your question, we need to make sure we have the people, we keep the people, we have the intellectual capabilities, we have the money, and we have a market that allows people to grow here.
How do we keep them here?
I think the best means is market. Ultimately, you need market. It is not enough just to have government funding. You need private funding. You need something that scales up, that public-private partnership should not translate into public pays permanently. So you need something that really, and if you look in what's happening with the Starlings and the likes, or the Amazons and the Kuipers, they actually scale into markets. This is not just a B2B. And I think this is it's a big challenge, but it's a necessity.
And I couldn't agree more. And I think just to answer, compliment what you said on how do you keep them there, I think part of these big budgets or the capital that gets deployed, I think the responsibility is also to invest it in growing the industrial base and making the most of it and spending that money here to invest in the future. And I think from an investor lens, again, why did we select space as one of those sectors? Because we can invest everywhere at all sectors. I think one of the global themes we're trying to back is security of everything. Yeah. And that includes defense, but it is much broader. We invest in companies software companies that help building resiliency in supply chains, in critical infrastructure. But when you sort of go back to the source of a lot of these companies, it is space. And it is a dual use of space, be it from the defense angle again, or thinking about climate change monitoring and wildfires.
Yeah, Mr. Rölicke.
Which resonates well, because when we are discussing government contracts, our investors are typically asking the question, how long is this going to take? How secure is this? This is just a one-off. This is not repeatable business. So the kind of initiative we're now seeing with having a stable anchor customer on the government side is only the prerequisite to make those government contracts a repeatable business. So when we think about dual use, it's about, is military applications or is defense applications potentially diluting our business case? Is that going to make us slower? We have one government contract where we need to deliver 2029. So I come from the heritage space industry. For me, this was like typically normal duration. But the first discussion our people had with the counterparts was like, can we deliver in 2? And the government said, no, we have our budget timeline and we cannot do this. So this is part of the story where we, as new space industry, can contribute in speeding things up, because we can leverage anchor customer funding and then actually speed up and do the scaling with the help of investor funding.
Yes, I'd like to complement what Axel just said, because this is exactly the topic. When you say, how can we keep the people? We need projects, we need challenging projects in a short time. Because people are not interested anymore to say, okay, I will start something which will fly in 10 years. And even in legacy company, but you know that. And so I see that the way we attract and we keep the talents is when we do projects which are done in a very fast path. That's what we have done on hypersonic glider on the military side. That's what we are doing on Maya for launchers. But it's true that we cannot have projects which are based on budget availability. And in order to get the most interesting talents, we need to have short-term projects which are very challenging, and where the customer accepts that we are taking risks, which is not always the case.
Just maybe one question again to you, because please add your thoughts.
Just to comment, and I think we need to stop talking inside the space bubble. And one of the things that I learned since I started at a startup that is talking to firefighters, foresters, they don't care where the data is coming from. They don't care about space. It's even threatening, because they believe, oh, can I trust this data? So part of the story for us is we need to deliver credible decision items, because we are using such complex technology. So it's like super important that we start talking about needs and the problems and not about how we solve it.
And you were talking about timelines and that it takes 2 years. I would rather start yesterday. Like, how can we speed that up? Like, how can we really speed up the process?
Faster than 2 years? Faster than 2 years?
Yeah, but how do we speed up?
If I can.
Anyone, come on.
Okay. you need the speed, and you need people that go full speed. And today, I would argue this is an example of what goes full speed. You need to integrate those dynamics into something that is an existing and more mature system. And in other words, the sovereignty aspect that we put on the discussion here with one minister needs the innovation aspect that we had earlier the day of the other minister, and in the other direction equally. Sovereignty needs the competitiveness and innovation, and the innovation and competitiveness needs the sovereignty. It works in the two directions.
I would maybe add another answer to that, and I would say that, but it's partnerships in my mind, partnerships across the ecosystem. And as KKR, most of the investments we do is actually with partnerships, with founders, families, and again, OHB is a good example of that, where we have a company that's really visionary, agile, on the cutting edge of technology. And then what we bring is capital, but it's also setting, helping set the right framework, taking our toolkit to help accelerate and benefit from the opportunities that are out there. And that only works because we have a global network, because we talk to the government customers. So I think it's really the whole ecosystem coming together on a goal that is similar.
Yeah, it's a real challenge in a bigger organization to say, how can I secure locally a different way to work? So sometimes you can make plateau to say, okay, on this kick stage we will work differently. Sometimes, and that's what we did also, we create a subsidiary where we say, you just reinvent the way to do the development. And the easiest way, but it's at small scale, is to make a partnership with a more agile company. So we are using the three of it, but it's mandatory to reinvent our companies in order to keep the benefit of both worlds. How do we guarantee the safety, reliability of big development, and which is necessary for sovereignty, and how we speed it up to answer to the timeline, which is short. We have spoken a lot about 2029 since this morning, and so time is running. We have to speed up innovation in our companies.
Maybe a closing round now. I know it's so interesting, huh?
You wanted to ask how to be fast, use standardized modules, and trust that you can use what exists today also in space, and take the risk to do that. And
so
what we're doing is we're generating resolutions with a camera that nobody thought was able to do that, because we use the same thing as you have in your iPhone.
So space can also profit from Earth tech, huh? The other way around. So maybe, No. One closing round, as the clock is already so red. So maybe because I really want stakeholders to commit to something, to make a change. And what is the one challenge, and please keep it short, like in 1 or 2 sentences, that you commit to solve, to change, to make a change? So what is the one challenge you can solve? Who wants first?
I probably have an easy
The lady
answer.
is starting.
No, I think it's a point I briefly mentioned earlier, but I think the big commitments we see from governments to invest in resiliency, specifically in space, is great, but it's not enough. And sort of being able to address that need through private capital is one of the challenges we're here to solve.
Very good. Yes, please, put your hands together. Mr. Möller.
Yeah, you took half of my answer, so. No, I think it is really, I quote a former NASA administrator who said, put it differently, he said, policy is where the budget is. And I would add to that it is about government commitment as an anchor. By the way, I wouldn't call it anchor, but launching customer. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it is really to activate the private. Money is a form that expresses commitment to the cause. Yeah. I think this is a very raw criteria, but I think it's a valid criteria.
Okay, Mr. Sillon.
I think that money is not the only solution, it has been said, and in order to go fast, what is important is that the money is not used to reinvent something which already exists in Europe. And so my commitment would be, and that's what I'm doing and that I will keep on going, is how can we simplify cooperation? Mm-hmm. Because to leverage on what exists already in several countries, and especially between France and Germany, Ariane Group being French and German, I think it's a right way to cooperation can be a way also to go faster.
Mr. Renico, no pressure, final thoughts?
2 things. I think one, we heard today a lot about how the processes are being sped up, and what that in fact means is going back to the needs. Okay. Don't specify a system, what it's supposed to do, but really define what you need. And on the industry side, it's something that we also learn is sticking to commitments. Programs that are regularly twice above schedule are not something to make us as industry proud of. So keeping schedule is one of the things that makes us profitable next year, hopefully, and also keeps people, continues trusting in what we do.
Thanks to all of you for your commitment of making a difference. So, thank you. Dankeschön.